So I'm Chuck Christianson, Group Vice President with Affinion Loyalty Group.
Chuck, is your existing customer strategy focused more heavily on acquisition or retention?
So what we do is we actually enable brands to acquire and to retain customers. And when they come to us, they really look at creating a unique experience for their customers. And one of the greatest trends that we're seeing in the marketplaces today is that no longer are we, a service economy. Much of the products and services that are being offered today, whether it's through online, on the internet, or through its brick and mortar stores, have been commoditized. Everybody researches every single product out there. So our customers are coming to us, and whether it's financial services, whether it's travel, whether it's hospitality, or whether it's true retail, they're trying to differentiate their commoditized product or service. And one of the ways we do that is looking back at some of actually the ideas that have been around for a little while. In 1970, Alvin Toffler wrote a book called Future Shock, and he talked about the idea of actually selling experiences, very literally selling experiences way out in the future. And that idea was revisited by Joe Price in the late 80s and early 90s when he wrote a book that was entitled The Experience Economy. Work is theater, and every business is a stage. And when we look at what we're selling today, we're actually creating, or more appropriately, enabling experience for each customer for the brands that come to us. And we do that in a variety of different ways. So when you look at the continuum of a transaction, right, it has a beginning, a middle, and then a really long tail at the end. And hopefully it doesn't end, right? That's the purpose of retention. And we look at it as though there is experience enablers and experience extenders. And together, those create a continuum of communication so that you have this cadence, or cadence of communication with your customer, that you can continually come back to them and create an experience, or more appropriately, enable an experience. And when we look at acquisition and retention, we look at it, or we bifurcate it in those two realms, and we figure out what's the way that somebody can get introduced to my brand in the most positive way. Whether it's through a premium, whether it's through an incentive, whether it's through an invitation. Today we live in a world where points quite often are given away, especially in the financial context, and or whether it's Capital One or Chase through their differentiated products, or whether it's through airlines or airline cards. They're giving away miles. But what's more relevant? Is there something that's more relevant to kick off that experience that's more immediate? We have a product called Motive Engine, which allows us to initiate very quickly that experience and really enable it and really set off that cadence of communication with the customer so that they create an experience. And the important thing we think to remember when you talk about acquiring and retaining customers is that we're enabling something that exists and lives and breathes and or dies and or lives within the customer themselves. And it's that kind of experience enabling that we're in the business of, whether it's at acquisition or at retention.
What do you think is the most important issue related to customer loyalty and retention?
I think it comes back to this cadence of communication. And it has to be a cadence of relevant, emotional, engaging, important communication with the customer. We live in a world where there are a multitude of channels. There's more channels with which to communicate with our customers than ever before. And I think to some extent, brands, especially highly conservative brands like insurance companies and banks, are paralyzed by the various different choices they have. So they're very kind of stayed in the way they look at how they should communicate with their customers. And online is still new for them. But really, the world has opened up and it's moving with an alacrity in terms of the expansion of channels of communications with customers like it never has before. And when we look at Pinterest, Pinterest just coming onto the scene to some extent, at least in the vernacular of the industry, in terms of the loyalty industry and what that's able to enable. A couple of years ago it was Twitter, a couple of years before that it was Facebook, a couple of years before that it was this crazy thing called the internet. It's moving so fast and people do not have the luxury to ignore these channels. They have to embrace them. They have to choose the channel that is right for their core customer. But I think they need to figure out how they enable an experience with their customer. We live in a world that is viral. Customers actually create the experience, and they create a community of experience, which enables both acquisition and retention. And when customers grab onto things, whether it's a picture on Pinterest, whether it's a tweet or an offer through, we did some things with Discover in terms of offering, having limited time offers, or whether it's through a site like Gilt.com where you come on and they create a arguably artificially urgent experience, right? To be able to get something. It's almost a game, right? In fact, it's very much a gamification element. To be able to get something quicker than somebody else because it's that special. All of these are different and new channels that really converge at the brand and at their experience with their customer. And I think it all comes down to communication, right? That cadence of communication can be better enabled by being able to embrace those channels, not be afraid of them, understand them, take small steps, get the right advice. There is no expert in social media, much less social commerce today. Anybody who calls himself an expert, I think, is naive, and anybody who believes them is even more naive. So you need to begin to understand it. You need to experience it yourself, and you need to understand that it is this kind of community that goes on that is not necessarily the new word of mouth. What it is it's an expediter of word of mouth. Word of mouth still exists and is still the most powerful, and it's that one-to-one communication. But through the channels that we have right now, we can enable others to create that cadence of communication with our customers. And that, I think, is really critical to any successful retention or acquisition strategy in our marketplace today.
Which of today's top trends will have the largest impact on the future of customer engagement and loyalty, mobile or social, local?
Sure, and I think it's, the funny thing is it's all of them, right? Because they all come together in this cadence of communication and creating this community that enables the extension of your experience. Because that experience, once again, is created by these individuals and also interacting with others. So those channels simply expedite it, right? Whether it's a social commerce site like Living Social or Groupon or EverSave, that gives you a 50% offer that you then pick up the phone and you call your friend. You pick up that crazy thing called a phone, right? And you call a friend. Or you text them, also, almost an archaic form of communicating, it seems, at this point, but it isn't. People use what's there, what is convenient to them. It's, I think of how I communicate with both customers and with my friends. I actually group people by what they respond most quickly to. Some are phone people, some are texters, some are emailers, some they just want to see and talk to you. You need to figure that out, but the funny thing is you figure that out by enabling an experience of communication, not choosing one over the other, not placing all your bets on red or black, or white or green or yellow, because there's too many colors now of communication. And I think it's very important that people understand it from a 50,000-foot level and they be able to get some perspective on it. But they have to do it fairly quickly. Unfortunately, we don't have the repose of time to be able to react to and read books on these trends. These trends are changing daily. And the great thing about it is these channels also are enablers of being able to digest this information. So, we serve, to a great extent, very conservative organizations, and we are continually trying to be able to buttress that battleship mentality that they have out there, and be able to get them to embrace these different modes of communicating, and be able to understand that there isn't any right or wrong, right? It's kind of like that essay in college. It's the story that you tell, and it's the story that you tell to your customer. And I think when they get that paradigm shift in the way that they should be talking to their customers, they become better equipped to enable an experience with their customers.
Let's talk about your experience at Loyalty Expo.
Okay.
What is it about Loyalty Expo that makes it relevant to either a service provider or a brand that's trying to reach its customers? Sure.
It's funny. We've come to Loyalty Expo each year that it's been in existence. And it has grown, and the funny thing about it is very much like some of the technologies that are coming and being represented through various different service and product providers here, it too has had a very quick sort of hockey stick growth into the loyalty community. 5 years ago, I don't know that there was a loyalty marketing community. I think there were the seeds of a loyalty marketing community. But one of the things that Loyalty 360 and its name suggests is they've been able to actually look at it from a holistic sense and be able to say, it's not just one particular industry that I'm serving, right? It's not just telecom, it's not just financial institutions, insurance companies, retailers, etc. It's all of them, because they're all interested in capturing that customer and retaining that customer long term. And it's not just the particular channels that might be represented or the disciplines that might be represented, whether it's building a website, whether it's analyzing data on the back end, whether it's fostering the channels of communications with customers. It's all that and more. And the key is they enable seemingly disparate, a few years ago, conversations into this very synergistic and holistic approach. So you see people coming in, we had a panel that we did. And on that panel, we had a financial institution, and we had a medical service provider. And when you think about that, you have Allergan on one end and Pentagon Federal on another end. What do those two companies have in common? Well, they have everything in common, right? They're talking to that same customer. They just offer different things. They have very different approaches. They have different regulatory environments that they must react to, both of them fairly onerous. But they actually have more in common than they don't have in common. And I think what Loyalty 360 has done is they've been able to embrace and be able to fortify that community of loyalty marketing and be able to give it its own singular voice in its community of seemingly disparate brands and seemingly disparate service and product providers.